Maid-Rite Burger is not a burger. Now, we aren't talking about the whole distinction of being a sloppy Joe or like a sloppy Joe. We're talking about the age-long infighting between franchises, the constant struggle for dominance, and the battle with state authorities. But not every aspect of Maid-Rite Burger is negative. There's also a story of family love, tenacity, and determination. So, what is it about Maid-Rite Burger that makes it the reason behind conflict and love? Find out in this epic story about the duality of Maid-Rite Burger. For those who don't know, Maid-Rite Burgers is an American fast food restaurant franchise specializing in making burgers or not quite burgers. It's not a sub or a sloppy Joe either, as it doesn't have that drippy tomato-based sauce people associate with sloppy Joes. Its customers have referred to it as a sloppy Joe's lazy cousin. What is the rave about this sloppy Joe type of sandwich? Like this video and subscribe to the channel to find out. It all began in 1926 with Fred Angel, a butcher in Muscatine, Iowa. Fred wanted to create something that would stand out from a hamburger, and he set to work. Fred combined a special cut and grind of meat which he seasoned to create the first sandwich, but it didn't have a name yet. To test his product, Fred needed a person who could tell him the truth, so when the delivery man was walking by, he offered the sandwich to him. After eating the sandwich, the delivery commented, "The sandwich is made right." From there, Fred had not only a name, but a delicious sandwich he could sell. Fred Angel didn't waste time. He wanted to capitalize on his unique form of burger, so he opened his first store in Muscatine, and at first, customers could only get their Maid-Rite Burger to go. Business was good, and Fred opened a new store where customers could eat inside. This was the beginning of Fred's expansion. However, at first, he kept it in the family. His son joined him in running the business, and soon, they got another store that had a drive-in service, which was the first in America, and soon other food brands copied it. With their fast food restaurant being such a big hit, Fred began to franchise. In 1927, just a year after they began operations, Maid-Rite Burger opened its first franchise in Durant, Iowa. The second franchise happened because of the first franchise. Cliff Taylor was in Newton, Iowa when the franchise first opened there. Cliff fell in love with the Maid-Rite Burger restaurant in Newton, and he decided to have one himself. So, in 1928, Cliff Taylor paid $300 to buy a franchise from Fred Angel. Cliff set up his own operations in Marshalltown, Iowa, and this was when things began to become messy. Fred and his family continued to manage their business, and Cliff, who purchased the franchise to operate in Marshalltown, also involved his family in running the business. However, Cliff was stubborn. He had his own vision of the franchise he bought, and he stuck to it. When Fred tinkered around with the Maid-Rite Burger and introduced a new seasoning he had developed, he ordered that the franchise owners include the seasoning in their Maid-Rite Burgers. Cliff had other ideas. He hated the new seasoning and decided not to listen to Fred. Fred tried to establish his authority, but Cliff was an intelligent man. He found a loophole in the contract he signed with Fred. It turns out that Fred didn't add that he could compel Cliff to use seasoning, and like that, he was free of Fred. But it wasn't only Cliff that was stubborn. The owners of the franchise at Newton wasn't a fan of the new seasonings, so he and Cliff retained the original way of preparing the Maid-Rite meat of just using only salt and not much else. But Taylor's Maid-Rite wasn't stubborn at the time. They followed other recipes of the franchise strictly, or as strictly as he could. He served his Maid-Rite burgers with pickles, yellow mustard, and onions. However, when most customers began to ask that ketchup be added as an optional feature, Taylor's Maid-Rite provided ketchup for customers that needed it. Despite having trouble getting their franchise owners to listen to them, Maid-Rite Burgers continued to succeed immensely. However, the business had to do this in the absence of its founder, Fred Angel. In 1950, Fred Angel died of heart-related problems, which he had battled with for years. But fortunately, he left the business in good hands. William Angel, Fred's grandson, ensured that Maid-Rite Burgers had a foothold across the United States of America. However, the Angel family soon burnt out and had to let the business go in 1984 to two businessmen, Clayton Blue, who was a farmer based in Russell, Iowa, and John Hilloty, a Des Moines contractor. The two men brought an aggressive expansionist vision to Maid-Rite Burgers, and they also brought trouble, which almost ended the business. The conflict began when Blue couldn't keep his promise to make Maid-Rite into a business that would sell its stocks to the public. Since Blue defaulted on this agreement, John Hilloty took over the company. Now, just as it seemed that the ownership of the business had been settled, Hilloty died. His death in 1991 created a nasty feud. In 1992, the Blues family went after the Helates and claimed they owned the business. They sued the Helates and got an injunction that prevented Maid-Rite Burgers from expanding. And like that, the troubles kept piling up. The case went on for 4 years, and in 1995, the Helates won. The court granted them ownership, but the business got stale due to Maid-Rite Burgers' inability to expand over the years, quality problems, and disputes about franchise fees. From having 138 restaurants, Maid-Rite Burgers reduced to 83 restaurants by 2002. In the end, in 2002, the Helates too decided to sell the business to an investor group headed by Bradley Burt, but retained a small stake in it. However, selling the company led to some of the worst infighting in the company's history. While the Maid-Rite chain was in chaos, the Taylors who ran the Taylor's Maid-Rite Burgers in Marshalltown were waxing strong and were determined to keep their franchise. When their patriarch, Cliff Taylor, died in 1994, his son, Don Taylor, quickly took over the business, and his wife, Polly, worked alongside him. But there was a problem. The shop Cliff ran was too small. It was so small that Dan and his wife, Polly, couldn't even put the signature Maid-Rite ground beef in the shop. They had to freeze it in their home, and even when the couple wanted to introduce pies to the menu, they made the pies from their home to sell in the shop. Don expanded the franchise and built a new restaurant across their first shop. Despite moving to a new location, they maintained the core parts of aspects of owning a Maid-Rite burger franchise. They used the Maid-Rite's cooking bins and continued to make their pies, which customers loved. Sadly, Don Taylor died in 1973, and his wife continued to manage the business before she handed it over to her daughter, Sandy Taylor Short. In 1985, Sandy handed over the business to her son, Don Short, who ran the business for 25 years, after which he returned the business to his mother. Across generations, Taylor's Maid-Rite Burgers remained tenaciously fixated on Maid-Rite's ideal. Out of all the franchises, they were not expanding their menus. They retained Maid-Rite Burgers, pies, and ice cream. Also, they were the ones who led the resistance against Bradley Burt. When Bradley Burt and his investor group bought Maid-Rite Burgers, they made him the head of the franchise, and as the leader, Bradley had big visions for Maid-Rite. Although in the first 2 years of his reign, longtime franchises left Maid-Rite Burgers. Burt wanted the franchise to be uniform, so wherever customers went, the taste would be the same. The problem was, the method he proposed left Maid-Rite Burgers bland, and the Taylor's Maid-Rite franchise would have none of it. They resisted. This wouldn't be the first time they would do this, but this time around, things were different. They were fighting someone vastly more powerful. Allegedly, Burt used his influence with the Iowa Department of Inspections and Appeals to get a policy that would ban using the popular Maid-Rite cooking bin. The alternative to the cooking bins were a more expensive modern one. Taylor's Maid-Rites claimed the newer cookers wouldn't be able to cope with the business's cooking demands. The expensive alternatives were the one Burt wanted all the Maid-Rite burger franchises to use. The DIA declared the cooking bins unsafe, but Taylor's fought the policy and argued that no one got sick since they started using it. Taylor's fought not only for itself but for other small-town Maid-Rite franchises. Unfortunately, Taylor's Maid-Rite Burgers didn't win despite an alleged discovery of a connection between Burt and the DIA. Taylor's fought a courageous battle, but it wouldn't be enough. However, leading the charge has helped it gain more popularity among the people. Bradley Burt believes greatly in Maid-Rite Burgers' potential. When he came on board, he set a target to bring the franchise number to 1,000. It's ambitious, but we'll see how it goes. Maid-Rite Burgers has gone through some ups and downs and managed to escape them. It's fought battles among itself and hasn't imploded yet. But with Bradley Burt's approach, things could get tricky. But that's just us. What do you think? Do you think Burt should strictly control the Maid-Rite Burgers franchise? Do you think it would work? Let us hear what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comment box and wait, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Cheers.